DC Metro and Nova Real Producers. This is your publisher, Kristen Brindley, and I have the honor of being here at Eastern Title with Josh Greene. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Josh is a valued partner in our Partner Spotlight coming up, and he is in both the Nova and the DC Metro Real Producers. So check his article out and check that out for all the real producers out there. And we're going to interview Josh right now, and he has a lot of experience. He and his team have done over 150,000 transactions and billions of dollars in business.
We even tried to put it on a calculator, and the calculator blanked out.
It did. It had this E and extra signs, and we're like, okay, well, there we go. So, can you tell me like your story and how you got started in title, and did you always, think you'd be in title?
Well, I never thought I'd be in title. I mean, this is the furthest thing I ever thought I'd be in, considering where I started from. I started from the meat business. My older brother, he had a meat company, and when I was a young kid, on the weekends, he used to make me go out and sell meat door to door. And he used to tell the guy, he said, don't bring him back till he's sold out. And so I'd have a 30-year-old guy who was training this little 13, 14-year-old kid, and within an hour or two, I'd come back and be like, I sold out, and be like, okay, well, fill it back up and go back out. The day's not over yet. So, I did that for, throughout high school. I was only allowed to do it 2 weeks out of the year. But I could go anywhere in the country I wanted. And I loved it. I got to travel everywhere. I made a lot of money at a young age, which kind of spoiled me. My dad thought I wouldn't go to college. So then I went to college for a couple of years, and my brother had one of his managers quit in his wholesale division. And he said, why don't you come up here and run the wholesale division? I was like, you know what? That sounds like just what I want to do. I love my family. Our family's a really big, tight-knit family. And I would love nothing more than to work with my brother and help him out. So we started doing wholesale meat, chicken and seafood all over the country, and we grew that into one of the largest wholesale and steak companies in the country.
Wow.
And I think I was 20, 21 at the time.
That's quite the start to an entrepreneurial streak for you.
Well, I really didn't have a choice. I didn't think of it as being entrepreneurial. It was that my brother told me what I had to do, and I couldn't let him down. So being, the little brother, I had to do what he told me. And I just did really well at it because I knew what I was doing, because I'd done it since I was 13. So, we did that for a long time, and then, things happened, and that business kind of fizzled away, and I went to go work with Cisco Foods, and went there, and I was one of their youngest sales reps for a long time. And Bethesda was my locality, and I used to have to drive to Jessup at 6 in the morning from Rockville, and then drive
That's a drive.
And then drive to Bethesda, and then if the food truck forgot a can, I had to drive back to Jessup and bring it back. And, after 2 years of that, I was making pretty decent money. The schedule was pretty flexible, and I was just like, I can't do this. This is just too much driving. I think I need more. My brother knocks on my door. He's like, hey, what do you think about selling cell phones? And I'm like...
Your brother gets you into a lot of things.
Yeah, he did when I was younger. He was always into something, And so then I said, well, let me try it out. And then within a couple of months, I was making so much money that it outpaced what I was making at Cisco. So I dropped Cisco, and then we started this cell phone business called Cell Direct, and we became one of the largest retail resellers of MCI WorldCom. And we all know what happened to them. So I became unemployed after that and went to go work for a friend of mine who had a mortgage company. And, I went and learned the mortgage business from the ground up, and we had an agreement that if I did a good job, that we would open my own branch. And when it got to that time, we didn't do it. And I went and started my own branch, my own company. It was called Mortgage Direct back in, 2003. And we did pretty well. And we had one settlement one day, and it was with a friend of mine who owned a title company. And I called him up and I said, hey, we got to settle this loan. He's like, we didn't get the order. And I was like, what do you mean? The credit's expiring. I'm pretty sure everybody out there had this happen, where a client went and bought a washing machine or a car like 3 weeks before closing, and then the credit's expiring and you're not ready out of underwriting where you are and the title company's not ready. And I was like, look, if you can't close this today, I'm going to go start my own title company. And they're like, you can't do that. And I was like, yeah, I can. Watch. And then that's how I started in the title business.
So you just said, I'm going to go do it, and then you went and did it.
Yeah, I had a few bumpy roads, but I figured out the path, and now we have Eastern Title.
So tell me about like the progression of starting the title company. Like where did you get your clients? Like what was your best mode of getting clients? Like how did that work for you?
At first it was my mortgage company giving us business so I could figure out the business. I didn't want to go out and solicit business from other people if I couldn't do the business good for myself. So we kept it just, internally. But then when the mortgage crisis hit and they went from conventional to Fannie Mae, you had to be audited. And when you were audited, then you could do Fannie Mae. Well, we hadn't been audited yet. So we couldn't do conventional loans and we couldn't do Fannie Mae. And I was like, well, I guess we're doing title now. And I went home and I was like, we're in the title business. Let's go get some business. So I really honestly just went back to what I knew, and that was what my brother taught me when I was younger, knocking on doors. So what I did is I got in my car, I made a flyer up, and I just went to a building and I looked at the directory and I said, okay, mortgages, real estate, okay. Wrote them down, went to each one, knocked on their door. And it's an even funnier story because in the building that we're currently in, my brother's good friend had the whole second floor. And I came and saw him, and there was a mortgage company on the third floor called Top One Mortgage. And I would go in there, and they were specifically a Chinese mortgage broker. And I'd go in there and say, hey, can you, send me a deal? Here's my flyer. I'll do it for $395. And every time I'd go down to see my brother's friend, I would come up here and go over there. Well, they were never sending me any business. So a year or two goes by, and somebody came in off an interview off Craigslist, and I looked at him and I was like, you speak Chinese? And he's like, yes. Okay, we're doing a live interview. Come on, let's go. And he goes, where are we going? I go, we're going somewhere. So I brought him here. He went in there with the flyer, and he talked to him. When he comes out, he goes, yeah, you're the dumb white guy. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, they keep saying that you keep coming in to try to get the business, but they're not giving you the business. You're not Chinese. He goes, but they're sending me a deal. I said, well, this dumb white guy just brought you in here, huh? And we've been doing business with them ever since.
There's different ways to figure it out, and it sounds like you just are always figuring it out.
Well, I find that in the title business, a lot of people don't want to knock on doors, and they don't want to be persistent. They think they deserve the business. And then, I just wasn't brought up that way. People just don't come up to me and say, hey, here's business. I wish it was that easy. So, I've always gone out and gotten it.
That's great. That's a great lesson for most anyone. It's just, things are slow or whatever. There's something you can do anytime.
Well, you don't want to be doing that when it's slow. Because, like a year ago, it was slow. And every title guy and mortgage guy in the world was going to the real estate offices. And, my buddy works at a Long and Foster, and I went down just to go have lunch with them, and the front door was locked. And I was like, why is the front door locked? And they're like, well, there's so many people coming there soliciting at us that we don't want you coming in unless you're specifically coming for a reason. So
wow.
You really need to pay attention and market when it's good. Because when it's slow, it's not just slow for you, it's slow for everybody, and everybody's marketing. And so now you're one fish with 100 other fish in the pond fighting for that one piece of meat,
So would you say just consistently marketing and consistently knocking on doors? And
consistently?
What would you say is a habit that you have that you would really say has been a huge contributor to success for you?
Oh, that's easy. Persistency.
Yeah?
Consistently persistent.
Consistently persistent.
That could even be a saying, consistently persistent. So I have a client, and I knocked on his door, and he was in PG, and he knows who he is. And he'll tell people this story. He goes, this guy came to my door every other week, and I had, every 2 weeks until you sent me a deal. And then, then it goes every month. And then if you send us a deal, then it's like, okay, however the relationship is. Well, I went there for 3 years, and I brought lunch every other week. And he wouldn't even give me a deal. And then one day he gave me a deal, and now he's been doing business with me for 10 years. And nobody else, he won't use anybody else but me, which, creates loyalty.
Well, if you're willing to go for that long, that hard for that business, you're going to fight for their clients.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it's a more selfish reason than that. If I give up, then all that amount of time that I put into it, I never got paid. So the end result for me is I got to get that business from you so I make the money that made all that time I wasted worth it.
It's not sunk cost. You're going to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, it might not be today. A lot of times it just depends when you walk in. They're like, no, we don't need you right now. The no doesn't mean that I'm not going to do business with you ever. It just means right now. The no means come back later, and if something happened between now and then, I might give you a shot.
What do you see over the next 5-10 years in title? What do you see changing? What do you see on the landscape? And then goals for you over the next 5-10 years. What's the goal for you?
Well, I think in the title business, I think everything's becoming a little bit more streamlined. It was very adequate, programs. I mean, even signing the documents, the 100 documents in settlement, I see that going away and it being something on an iPad where you just sign. Or, they have DocuSign, but, it really hasn't gotten into the title space yet. But, as a company, we're constantly looking for things that help our real estate agents. We're one of the first people to sign up on this app called Zachem. Have you heard of it? Mm-hmm. So basically, you download the app as an agent, lender, or a buyer or seller, or whomever, and you can just it's like when you deposit the money at your bank. You just take a picture of it and it deposits in our escrow. You don't have to even come to our office and bring an EMD deposit.
Fantastic.
So, we invested in that company personally, and we use that app. And then we also have pre-docs that we're getting ready to roll out, where the buyer, agent, seller checklist, those things that we never get in time. As a
I have heard that part.
The seller doesn't realize we need their seller checklist in order to pay off before settlement, because it could take 3 to 7 days. So we're really looking for a program that could help us with that. And the first thing we do is we jump onto these things because we want your experience to be as good and flawless as possible, whether or not the seller or the seller's agent or somebody else in the transaction isn't on top of their game. So we're trying to find ways to make it easier. And what we did is we're making that a paperless transaction where we send you a link, you open that link, and then it'll re-email you and remind you, hey, you haven't filled this out. And you don't have to fill it out by paper. You just go on your computer, you just check the boxes, type in a couple of things, press send, it comes over us, and you're good to go. So, we have older clients that are in their 80s and they're like, we don't have a fax machine, we don't have an email, we don't, we can't get you the documents you need. We're gonna mail them to you. And we're like, oh, well, can we send somebody over to you? So you still run into that. But we're really trying to gear the business, I think, toward really not having to use the mail, the fax, especially with the wire frauds that's going on right now.
So in all of that landscape, what is it, if you were to take a snapshot of your business in 5 years, what do you feel are your goals and that kind of thing with what you do?
Well, I mean, my goals are pretty lofty. We want to be all over Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Our motto is that we close anywhere, anytime. When we want to own the real estate that we're in, so we just bought our office in Falls Church. We're getting ready, we're looking at an office in Rockville, which is going to be our flagship corporate office, which we might have found yesterday, so hopefully we'll see. And we just opened an office in PG, and so within the next year or two, we're going to have another one in Annapolis. So that's where we're going. We're trying to grow as much as we can with locations so we can expand our reach and get to those clients out in Annapolis because they don't want to use the Rockville Title Company, even though we'll come to you.
That is some growth. Good for you.
Yeah.
So if you were to like really look back at everything that you've done, what do you think is either, well, I'm not going to talk about a book or a movie or anything like that, but do you have like a mentor or anything that, you know, strikes you as this was a turning point for me, like some advice that you heard or a mentor that you've had that really has shaped what you've done?
It really goes back to my brother. I mean, I don't want to give him that much credit, but you got to give him credit where credit's due. You know, you taught me at a young age, and I didn't even realize this until I became a business owner and I try to get people to market. To get people to walk in a door and talk to somebody is really difficult if they don't like it. And I used to be like, this is nothing, come on, let's go. You know, let's go for a walk, let's go in this building. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, we're just gonna, well, you just walk through the front door and you're talking. I was like, yeah, this is what you do. You know, so he really taught me that, and I didn't even know he taught me that, by making me go out and sell that meat. I mean, because God knows how many people tell you no when you're not, who's buying meat from you from a door, out of a van.
You learned to take some rejection back in the, like, good for you.
You know, and I don't think if I would have done that, that I would have been able to do, I might have done something differently, but I wouldn't have been as aggressive of a company or as a person without having that experience in my life.
Well, so at this point, like, is there anybody out there on Facebook? Do we have any questions or anything like that? All right, Josh, what, I just have a couple more, like, what would you like to be remembered for?
For winning a fishing tournament or catching one of the biggest fish in the world. You know, that's one of my hobbies, but, you know, I'd like to be remembered for somebody who did good in business, was always doing the best, not trying to be right, but just trying to make sure that everybody was taken care of, and just being a good person.
Do you have any tips for the real producers out there and working with your industry or working with title?
Well, you know, there's a lot of tips coming from a title company, but, you know, one of the main things is, you know, when you guys get documents, send them back to the title company. One of our #1 problems are agents or transaction coordinators or sellers getting documents and then us following up with them and not getting them back in time, or getting them not just not back in time, but just not in a reasonable amount of time. You know, getting them 3 or 4 days before closing, and then there being an HOA or a payoff that takes 7 days, and oh, it could take 4 to 7 days for the payoff, and we're closing on the 4th day, so our whole office is in a tizzy, and then we get the payoff that morning. We're like, great, we made it, but we don't want you to know about that stuff. But, you know, as an agent, I think it's really important to let your clients know when they get correspondence to respond right away. And the other thing is the new thing that we tell people is, when you're at the settlement table and you decide to take a wire, don't be offended if we call you and you decide to take a check, and we tell you have to come into the office to get it, because we don't accept any changes by email anymore because of the fraud.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What kind of advertising do you do, Josh?
Wow. Well, we advertise with you, DC Top Producers.
That's right.
In DC and Maryland.
Why have you chosen to work with DC Metro Real Producers and Nova Real Producers?
Well, I think that we've been in the business for so long, and we know the processes, and we know the people that we want to be around and the people we want to do business with. And if you are the best, you want to be around the best. And I mean, you told me you're around the best, so I'm trusting you.
It's true. These guys are the best. So, you know, it's been a pleasure to interview you, Josh. Like, thank you so much for being on Real Producers, and you know, everybody have a fantastic day. You've heard it from DC Metro Real Producers. You've heard it from Nova Real Producers.